With the world in a global pandemic for almost 2 years and so many various stories on every side, I took the time to step away from the daily depressing news, constant death toll numbers, and all the anger and division that was being created. Unfortunately, like everything else that is repeated consistently, the majority of people have become desensitized to what they see every hour of every day on the news and all the discussions that come from it. And living a constant state of fear and paranoia, they have been easily herded into a new way of thinking and living, and I believe it's only going to continue. Having taken time away from creating YouTube videos, it allowed me to breathe, gather my thoughts, and live a normal life as much as possible. But it also served as a mental and spiritual reset, and it has allowed me to keep a silent observation on all that is happening in the world. A silent observation that's allowed me to keep a healthy balance to all things happening, a balanced approach to consider the times we are living in, and what significance this holds to major Marian prophecies and others in recent years. I feel the increasing need to speak up more with the intention to make others have more clarity to our times and what is occurring and why. What can we expect to happen next year and the coming years? I personally have an increasing belief that this decade, which we're in, will deliver many major events in the world and in the Church. Events contained in certain prophecies and messages given by heaven to the world. By putting some of these pieces together, I hope to make a clearer picture. It most likely will not be perfect, as the mystery still remains due to God's will, but that's the way it would be for now. This is not about breaking any secrets or trying to find a code to break. That's just nonsense. It's not about conspiracy theories. It's not about doom and gloom, fear. Quite the opposite, actually. But it is allowing the room for logical thinking, that silent observation, being alert to the signs of the times, and doing all that has been asked of us by God. Living the messages given by our Blessed Mother is critical, and it is the key to it all. But the small segment of room to try and understand the times is also a factor that should be considered in order to direct our spiritual efforts and bring others into the fold while there is time. From watching my videos, you should see a common thread that highlights the significance and key themes such as Russia, the Catholic Church, the Pope or the Papacy, and the prophecies foretold in regards to coming events. Such events will have this thread woven throughout it. As further confusion will come, and more people become more afraid and irrational because of their fear, we have to hold on tight to what we have been prepared for. As this is my first video in several months, I thought it would be a good opportunity to have a quick refresh on things I've mentioned in my other videos before. I will also highlight some new points and sources, and I hope moving into 2022 I will cover more new sources in greater detail. As you see here, I'm going to do a little talk through for these major parts and more to come later on as well. I put very little emphasis on the list of popes given by Saint Malachy back in the 1100s right up to our present day, but it's the fact that we have arrived at the present day of the last numbered pope. It does have a coincidental fitting with the Garabandal prophecy of the 4 remaining popes since John the 23rd, but of course the pillar to it all, going back at the beginning in the 1917, is the Fatima apparitions, primarily where Our Lady gave the little children 3 secrets, as people would say. It's one big message with 3 parts. The first 2 parts were revealed. The third part, commonly known as the third secret, was believed to have been revealed in the year 2000 by John Paul II, And many of you already know by now, he was the Pope that was shot on the Fatima anniversary, many years later after the apparitions. But one of the successful videos on my list, and I see more people doing it, is the Prophecies of Emmerich. Again, these videos each have an in-depth presentation to them all. I'm just bringing a few pieces together to see this interwoven thread. So we are the generation that's arrived after many centuries of Saint Malachy's list. The saint gave us every pope with a little excerpt describing their ways all the way down to our present day. We're going to go in with Anne Catherine Emmerich because something stood out for me last year during the time of worry, fear, pandemonium. That last year in America almost broke the spine of what it stood for in society. And then, of course, everyone through social media called it the year of opinions. But sadly, during lockdown last year, our churches were also closed. Now, if you look into the main themes of Anne Catherine Emmerich, primarily around about the year 1820 and onwards, you'll find that there's a few themes, such as the churches being closed in her visions. She spoke quite often of the word within the church. She saw a lot of compromise that led to a split in the church. She spoke about a false church, which has also been highlighted from Padre Pio through Lucia of Fatima, this rise of a false church. We're speaking about also, she saw the city of 7 hills and ruins. Now we know Rome's a city of 7 hills, as is Jerusalem apparently, and believe it or not, I think Edinburgh in Scotland's also a city of 7 hills. Now these might be things I've heard in the past, I've read it somewhere, I haven't done research on it, but we know the focus is going to be in Rome. There's too many other things pointing to that as well. Everything in the past couple of years has highlighted to me the idea of precursors. With Fatima's secret, where we saw the Pope walking over the city half in ruins with a halting step, when it came to the point of many people being martyred. We see this during the pandemic in the first year, where the Pope almost, it's like a precursor, the way he's limping is a halting step, walking closer to the cross, the wooden cross, a miraculous cross that was given at the time from the last plague. It was just a little precursor. Now, Garabandal is very exceptional here when it comes to the list of the popes. The 4 more popes after John the 23rd was advised, one would have a short reign. As you can see with the star asterisk, that was John Paul. But since John the 23rd, we've had Pope Paul VI, John Paul II, Benedict XVI. There are your 4 popes. Now, some say in sources have said, oh, it was 3 more popes after it because that short reign didn't count. So even if John Paul doesn't count, you've still got Paul VI, John Paul II, and Benedict. Either way, we're in the new era with Francis. You either take the 3 out of the 4, you take the 4. We're at Francis now, so we're in the new era. Now, with Anne Catherine Emmerich, she does give a lot about 2 popes, and I have heard in videos elsewhere, such as Dr. Taylor Marshall, where he goes back to the times of the Pantheon and the popes back then, centuries ago. And although that may be the case, and it is, what still stands out for me is not only does he speak about that in ways, but then he tries to do a video with the Fatima secret and almost say is it a time of 2 popes based on Lucia's words. Now, without getting too much into that or putting my own spin on it, as I'm not ready for that yet, it's still what we have now is a time of 2 popes constant. Well, we have a time of 2 popes present right now, alive, both of them in white, both of them living in the Vatican, although Benedict is at a palace unbeknown to the Pope, a new residence, as Anne Catherine Emmerich more or less described it. But we're at the time as well where we've arrived at the end of Saint Malachy's list. We've also arrived at the end of the 4 popes. And I did a little bit of research into the dates of what happened in 2013. Look at this. On the 11th of February, Benedict announced his resignation, and he resigned on the 28th of February. But on the day he announced his resignation on the 11th of February, the lightning strikes St. Peter's Dome. That stood out to me while I was living in Rome at the time as a seminarian. Only a few days later, on the 15th of February, a meteor lands in Russia. Then, on the 13th of March, Francis is elected to the new Pope. And then a few days later, again on the 18th of March, Putin is re-elected as the Russian president. And then on the 21st of April, another meteor lands in Argentina, the homeland of our new Pope. Now, some people want to have more paper evidence and look more into detail of the apparition sources and the prophecies and things. But to me, it's still a little sign, a biblical sign that stands out, and I can't ignore it. The fact that the last Pope coming, the glory of the olive, Benedict XVI, as Saint Malachy put it. Obviously, the olive was the emblem of the Benedictines, and he takes the name Pope Benedict. The fact that he seals off his papacy as the fourth Pope since John the 23rd, as given by Garabandal. And now we're in on the time of the two popes prophesied by Anne Catherine Emmerich. Is it just a coincidence the day he announces his retirement, lightning strikes St. Peter's, and just a few days later, the one key nation that is throughout the prophecies, especially with Fatima and Garabandal, is Russia. The stars falling from the sky could be a sign of an apocalyptic verse from the book of Revelation, but within a few days, I don't believe you could put odds on that. It's not in the trillions when you think of one rock coming through the vastness of space to our planet that coincidentally lands on Russia, but then only to happen in the days as Benedict's resignation is announced with the lightning striking the dome. If you had to put all those odds into that happening the way it did, you're in a googleplex of possibilities and numbers. It's humans. I don't know if even artificial intelligence can work that out due to the space, the distance, the time, the vastness of space. But not only that, add in another thing to see in the odds. The next pontiff of the new era at the time of the two popes now, from Argentina, and then another meteor lands in Argentina. Come on. I don't put too much emphasis on it as if there's anything secret about it or what's to be seen. Again, it's a silent observation, but you cannot make up this type of stuff. But then was Putin re-elected in between Francis's election only so many days later. Again, Russia, the Argentinian, the pontiff. March 18th, as we know from Medjugorje, Mariana makes a very clear quote regarding it. This is what she says. Great people were born on the 18th of March, but I never have my birthday because that is the day of the apparition. And many people have the wrong opinion about it. They feel that Our Lady comes to me on the 18th of March because it's my birthday. She doesn't come for sure for that reason, because she's never said to me, happy birthday. When everything starts happening, then you will be able to understand why the 18th of March, why every second of the month, why Wednesdays and Fridays are days of fasting. Everything will be clear. Now, what stands out for me there, obviously, with Russia being the interwoven nation with all of this, is President Putin is elected on March 18th. That's the one thing that stands out. And you could look in the internet for all the ones who was born in those days and all the rest of it. I don't know where the significance is with that. But we do know in March 2020, Our Lady announced to Mariana that she would stop appearing to her on the 2nd of every month. And from March 18th, 2020, she now only sees Our Lady every year on that date, March 18th. It was rather significant and an eyebrow-raising moment, especially when we were heading into lockdown in the coming days worldwide. The very next day, on March 19th, which is the feast day of St. Joseph, here in my own country of Scotland, the Catholic churches closed their doors on the faithful, like it was mentioned with Anne Catherine Emmerich in her apparitions. And what stood out for me last Easter Sunday, I came across one of her videos I wasn't looking for. It was recommended on YouTube. And I've said this in the video already about Anne Catherine Emmerich in detail. exactly 200 years to the day where she's speaking about these events coming and that what came along that year of 1820. She gave a clear message on April 12th, 1820 about this, but here on April 12th, 2020 was Easter Sunday and the churches were closed. We could not get to the Lord and the sacraments. The churches were closed. I find that very significant with timing. Again, put your odds on that with everything else. March 19th, as we know, is the feast day of the patronage, or the St. Joseph is the patron of the Universal Church. Now, St. Joseph is key more and more, and I'm the first one to admit my ignorance towards the great saint. He was the foster father of the child Jesus who played the role as father. And Father Calloway's book has been a great help and source of coming to know this great man more and more. His part, why is he appearing in Knock? Why does he appear in the great miracle of Fatima? Why does he have the year of St. Joseph given to him just as all this starts to happen? Enter this man. This is a priest, Father Michel Rodrigue. Apologies if I got the name out pronounced wrong. He is French Canadian. Father Rodrigue came into quite fast-paced fame during 2020, where he gave off many prophecies. There are many videos on YouTube which I've watched many of. One of my favourites is the one he speaks about the Knock apparitions. Now you can go and find that video and watch for yourself. He gives great details, but this priest has given himself so much exposure with some of the things that he's actually speaking about, he's prophesying about, that it's either going to happen or it's not. He speaks about further trials, but uniquely, as I've been mentioning of St. Joseph, the year of St. Joseph ended on December 3rd, and we were alerted months prior to this from Father Michel that he believes what he's received as his last message given to him earlier in the year. And what will soon happen come December 8th onwards is we're going to see more and more things unravel quicker. Things are going to start heating up. I've said all along from the previous videos last year, we're like the frogs in the cold water on the burner. We don't get out. We just stay there. We get lukewarmer. We get a bit hotter, and before we know it, it's boiling over. Right now, I think we're at the lukewarm part, getting into the simmer stage, and then where it goes from there. But the significance of December 8th, Father explains that his last message, he takes 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, where St. Paul speaks about God coming in, holding back the restrainer of the antichrist. Father Michel says he believes this to be St. Joseph. St. Joseph is given extra graces. Well, through St. Joseph, God has given extra graces and protection to the church this past year. But as discreet and quiet as the man of the gospel is, he's now taken that step back gently in order and for God's will for the Antichrist to arrive. He's no longer restraining him as much. And what will now come in this short time that the devil has left is many events are going to start unfolding. I personally would not be surprised if some of the secrets of Medjugorje start coming this decade. Many people believe now that Francis says he's open to go to Moscow. That's a big indicator as well for the warning. But it's very plain into the fact that Father Rodrigue does connect Fatima, Garabandal, Medjugorje to many of the things that he says that stands out for me, and he's given positive comments about them all, but he's given more of his own details of what he says will happen at the warning, and then the tribulation that comes after it, the time of home of the refuges, where we have to bless our homes in a way to be a refuge during these times of trial to come. He spoke previously last year about how now after this it's the volcanoes that are coming next, and we already see what's happening in La Palma. What you may not have heard of is the few that's erupted over in America, I think it was Alaska. I think there's one now in Indonesia. But from Google searches, nothing seems to be out of the ordinary in terms of volcanic activity for now. But now with just speaking away, the one that stands out for me with Father Rodrigue is his description given at Knock. When he was in Knock, he says he had more apparitions, more message, and what stood out for him is he took it to be that he would see the martyrdom of Francis and Benedict, or two popes. Now, if this is the case it happens, there are many videos just like this one where you've heard it. So it is down to the case of seeing if this is what's going to happen, is this what's going to come? But remember, if it is all in the play, we have got to the point where we may see these things coming through, and all that 2022 may bring when we see the rise of communist totalitarianism, especially in places like Australia and Canada, certain areas of America like New York, and what's coming more in Europe. Soon enough the UK will be part of that as well. Everything's a precursor. It's not something simple as what the majority think that it is. There's more coming, and don't say we haven't been warned. But for my next coming videos into the new year, we're going to be looking at these things I've mentioned more in depth. It's not a time to be silent, it's a time to be courageous.